Hey guys, this is Tom Box. Welcome to MST.TV, and I'm pretty sure you guys are pretty much sick of the format by now. The Sword Soul, the Phantom Knight DPE, the DPE Invoked, anything related to Sight. But what are some other decks that you can play in the format that don't relate to these cards that can still hold their own? Well, I've got 5 recommended rogue decks that you guys can totally rock on. And I've tried these decks personally, so that's why I can actually recommend them to you. They don't just lose because, oh, someone else is playing meta. No, these guys got their own tricks up their sleeves that can definitely steal games, steal matches, or even steal the entire locals run. And although if you play it at a YCS level event, that's going to be a different thing, because I personally don't pilot enough rogue decks to know, maybe except for one of these decks where I know how far it can actually go. But for the most part, these decks with their tricks up their sleeves, it's really good and really fun, and especially if you're really bored of the format, these are some things that you guys can try. Now, before we jump straight into the content, make sure you guys smash that thumbs up button, hit subscribe, ding notification bell, because it really helps out this channel with this year's goal, trying to hit 100K this time. I'm going to dedicate much more into it. I'm going to give you guys all the hot tips and tricks, because if I'm not going to be going to competitions, I don't have to hold back on anything, and I'm just going to dump it all straight to you guys, so you guys have the best chances of hitting your tops. So make sure you guys subscribe to MST.TV for that, and don't forget to check out MSTmerch.com. New merch is coming out. If you guys paid attention to the 24-hour stream where Pazim basically won the latest mat that's not even released yet, you guys know what I'm talking about. Check out MSTmerch.com, and there's also going to be new sleeves coming out this year, new designs as well, so stay tuned for that. And you know what? Let's begin. The first deck that I can definitely recommend to you guys has got to be the rank 4 water fish spam deck known as the Shark deck. This deck previously was already known to be a toad spam deck by spitting out multiple rank 4 Bahamut Sharks, and I believe you can even go into Utopia Draco Future with the 2 Bahamut Sharks that you spat out. That was what it was previously, but it was kind of like a one-shot cannon. After you fire it, you kind of have a little bit of a problem kind of recovering cards, but thanks to Brothers of Legend releasing about 3 cards that I think have the most amount of impact: number 4 or fake number 4 Stealth Kraken, we have White Mirror, and we have Right Hand Shark, and even I guess to some degree Silent Sea Nettles. These cards gave it a lot more, I guess, rigidity, and I guess made it a lot more robust as well. And one of the best things is about that Stealth Kraken. Stealth Kraken changes everything to water, so that just makes it so that you can also pop cards, and that does not require detachment of materials, and it doesn't even target, which is fantastic. But because it changes everything to water, much like Zombie World and Rivalry of Warlords, now we have a Stealth Kraken and Gozen match, which can completely shut down a deck. Even for a deck like, say, Sword Soul, which have, say, Moye plus the water token, sure, but they can't go into Chi Shao, they're stuck going into Dragite. And killing your monster is not exactly the easiest thing if you use Right Hand Shark, because anything that uses Right Hand Shark to make it, if the other material is also water, you cannot be destroyed by battle, so you can probably just pop the Dragon as well. So good luck trying to play through that. It's not the easiest thing, and once they get Gozen locked, it's pretty brutal. It's really one-sided once you get to that point. But alternative win con, if you want to stall your opponent out, you can play Crooked Cook, and with Right Hand Shark, they'll just not be able to affect it, cannot be destroyed by battle, so you can use that as an alternative win con. If you can win with Mystic Mind, then you don't mind using that win con. Alternatively, because everything is also water, you can also play Super Poly to clear boards. There's just many different ways you can play with this deck, which is why I 100% recommend this. There's just so many different ways to extend and many ways to recover your cards now, which is why it is a fantastic choice. If you have a Freaky Fish guy within you, give it a try, and you can pick up this entire deck basically under $100. That's pretty cheap. I think the most expensive cards were the rares, to be honest, because a lot of the stuff got reprinted. Even the Zeuses aren't too bad, so under $100, this deck can be yours to, you know, screw around at locals. Deck number 2 that I can definitely recommend is one of my personal favorites. It's ABCs, but instead of going for Trap ABC, where your opponent can basically outspeed you at this point, I know Torrential Tribute is still a very powerful card, but I definitely recommend going for the Synchro one, because the Synchro one is a lot faster, and if you can afford the crossout designators, which are pretty cheap right now, I think the overall cost of this deck is close to maybe $250 or so. But what you can do is you can spit out Baron, Warlord Savage, and a Herald of the Arclight, all on the board through, I guess, a very basic combo. And all of this does not require banishing, so even if your opponent throws a Lancia on you, which a lot of them will do because ABC is known to be hit by Lancia most of the time, and usually that stuns them out, the Trap variant would have been hit a little lot more because the Trap variant does summon out ABC more prominently, whereas this one, ABC is more like a byproduct, and you're kind of capitalizing off of the ABC pieces, the Union monster, when they trigger in the graveyard, and that you're using that to form chain blocks and using it basically as a form to kind of crack boards. Weaknesses of the deck, of course, you're going to be stunned out by I guess, Abyss Dweller. That hurts, and because there's a lot of effect veilers and a lot of imperm, I do recommend using crossout designators. So the price may vary depending on what you want to run in the deck. If you can afford it, maybe you can also try out I guess Forbidden Droplet, but that card is really pricey. You might as well use a common version of Dark Ruler No More if you want to crack boards and maintain control. This is an aggro control deck and has some level of OTK and has pretty solid board breaking capabilities thanks to ABC Dragon Buster, Underworld Goddess of the Closed World, and basically you have a Rorodon combo in there as well. Deck number 3 that I can recommend to you guys for Rogue is got to be pure Lyrilusc. Pretty cheap to afford. I think the most expensive part of this deck has got to be maybe the Bird Calls. I think the Bird Calls are it. Or it could be Forbidden Droplets if you want to go in that direction, but you don't have to go in that direction. One thing about this deck is that you need to play it as a Lyrilusc deck pure, but it can also be mistaken sometimes as a Bird Up Tri-Brigade, and you can use that to your advantage. Your opponent puts up any monster on board. One of the mistakes that they can make is leaving anything with 1500 attack and not really protected. If you can go into Assembled Nightingale and get its effect to go off to protect all your birds, and you can push for the OTK, you should go for it because that's one of the best win cons you have available. Most of these birds have a pretty weenie stat, and they require their effects to go through to even find some way to deal damage. Your Recital Starlings, they are key. Luckily for this deck, single Ashes don't really work, single copies of Effect Veiler don't work, single copies of Imperms don't work, and in fact, half the times Effect Veiler and Imperm, they can't even target the key monster they want to hit because you created them with the Cobalt Sparrow, and that makes it so that they're not targetable, and you can use that as a way to actually deal damage. And luckily, you can actually grind against your opponent as well because Assemble Nightingale is your key attacker monster, is your key aggressor, so that you can keep pushing life points directly. And not only that, it can also prevent any of your birds from being destroyed by battle or card effect, which makes it very sticky. And because of that particular situation, you can use that as a way to grind out your opponent's life points. And don't forget that, surprisingly, they will run cards like Lyrilusc Bird Sanctuary to attach all of one bird onto another bird, like preferably the direct attack, and perhaps just steal games by attacking directly, or they can detach to make sure that none of their monster can be destroyed by battle card effect and don't take battle damage, and they can reflect all that damage through Recital Starling. And that part, it sucks a lot because the simple mistake of actually leaving a monster on the field without actually leaving any sort of protection against taking battle damage could be the downfall that you make, and these are the mistakes that people can make. And surprisingly, you can also sack people with Psychic Sword, which does occur from time to time because direct attacks 3 times for 28, that's usually more than enough to kill someone. So there's a lot of alternative win con. Plays much like a Grand Madru deck where you can just kind of ignore most of the stuff on the field as long as they're capable of getting their attacks to go through. Deck number 4, Heroes. Heroes is a kind of a given choice here because it runs DPE, but not only that, it was already a really strong deck overall to go second previously with the Malicious Bane and, the ability to crack boards and just really push for a ton of damage. But this deck can now actually go first as well with Plasma DPE, and maybe if you're lucky enough, you spit out even a Dark Law. The same combo plus Cross Crusader and the ability to dump, say, your Malicious into the graveyard through the effect of Polymerization, or maybe you have Destiny Hero Denier also in the graveyard. You can really just use it to build a board, generate the number of monsters to tribute for that Plasma. And Plasma is not the easiest monster to kill, even at 1900. You better have some sort of board wipe to clear the board, or Dark Ruler No More, because you can't use Droplet. So if you're maining Droplet becomes a dead card thanks to Dark Law, of course. and it's just not the easiest board to crack because the amount of damage reduction, attack reduction that's occurring right now is thanks to DPE's effect having more than just 2 heroes. What if there's 5 heroes in the grave? Now you're losing 1,000 attack across the board. You're not killing the you need a 2900 beat stick to run over the plasma, and you have to do it without any effects, and that part is going to be very difficult. So that's our going first play. And even if you have effect veilers and imperms, they can dodge it through the simple use of a mass change, which they do play at 3. Not exactly the easiest like matchup to play against, and having everything being banished is not really the best scenario unless you're playing Floowandereeze. Then you don't really care, but you still have to eat a DP, and you have no monster effects, which really sucks, because how are you gonna get to those big tribute summons if you're completely stunned out the entire game? Skill drain is one of your worst enemies, of course. So yeah, that's the way to go first. If you go second, you can still break boards by doing multiple fusions, such as Miracle Fusing to Sunrise, and then you can use that to break boards, and DP can just be another card along the way. And Fusion Destiny is just icing on the cake, rather than being a sad card that you play at the end, and hopefully the DPE can kind of control the board in a simplified game state. DPE is kind of guaranteed through the efforts of polymerization, but even if that fails, you can still play a copy of Fusion Destiny to bring out Dystopia and other things to kind of extend it further. So it's not exactly a one-trick pony anymore, but it still has very similar weaknesses, such as Nibiru and such as those big card wipes. Even our simple Raigeki can completely turn this deck 180. And deck number 5 I can recommend to you guys is number 99 Utopia deck. This particular deck requires a little bit more combo consciousness, because you do need 3 cards to full combo the entire deck. Luckily, it's really easy to search because there's at least 6 cards that leads to searching a lot of these pieces. The problem is the deck is full of Drolls, full of Ash, Imperm, and Veiler all together, which makes it a little bit more difficult. So I would recommend this deck more at a locals level play rather than a competitive level play at, like, I don't know, maybe regionals. But if you're only hoping to like top like I guess an OTS store tournament, that's still very much possible. The only issue is if you're trying to go for like an 8-round tournament, then you're gonna start to see the flaws in round 4 or so. The reason why is because you're gonna get hit by all those hand traps I already mentioned, and getting hit by those is not very fun. Overall, what's so special about this deck? You can spit out about 3 monster negates with 1 spell trap negate and maintain a hand size of 6 along the way if you have the 3-card combo. But if you can't do the 3-card combo, that's okay too. You can still get a 2 monster negate with a 1 spell negate overall, and that's actually not too bad. I think you maintain about 2 or 3 cards depending on what was in your hand originally. This is still pretty good. This is thanks to the effects of Utopia Dragonite summoning out the ultimate Leo Utopia Ray, because that's considered as a number monster. It's considered as actually number Chaos 39. Because it's number C39, you can summon out with Utopia Dragonar, and if you attach a card under it, you can get your Pegasus Saber on it, so that you can interrupt your opponent's monster effect 2 times, once through the effect of the Leo Utopia and once through the Pegasus Saber. That's also pretty good. And the second monster you get to summon during your opponent's turn is got to be Hope Harbinger, sucking up a spell card, making it not too easy for your opponent to crack your board. And if you have the full combo, you'll even have an F-Zero on the board, which, well, good luck breaking this board. You still have a ton of cards in your hand, and if you play the correct amount of hand traps, you can maybe even load your hand full of hand traps, or maybe set some chalices or imperm against your opponent. So overall, this deck is actually really cheap to build overall. I don't know if you actually even need to spend $100 on this one, because most of it's actually pretty affordable. I think people tried to spike it up, but honestly, you probably could go sub 100 if I know this deck right. Correct me if I'm wrong. If you're playing like big staples, then of course things are going to be a bit more pricey. But this one overall, you can build some pretty solid board. If you are a Yuma fan, you want to kill someone with Utopia, you've got other ways to actually kill your opponent as well. You don't have to focus on all the Xyz spamming in the deck and try to lock your opponent out or whatever. You can even try to just one-shot them with double or nothing, because you're running Utopia double in there. You can search out, you can even go to like Utopia Dragonar, summon out Utopia next to it, negate that first attack with Dragonar at 6k, putting it at 12k, you can punch over anything. They're gonna die. It's just surprise. I also have a little Grand Maju package against you. But if I don't, I still have a negation package, and being able to finally crack a board and then put up your big boss monsters, usually that can secure you game with this particular deck. But it does require a bit of hand size, which is why it's harder to play in some cases. And if you get like stunned out by your opponent not letting you build the board, that is going to be a problem. That's why the Shark deck, in terms of an Xyz deck, I would recommend that one a bit more, because the extenders there, you don't really care about most of their effects. You just care about the body being there. That's all I got for this particular video. Hopefully you guys look forward to the upcoming ban list. I'm going to be trying to like decipher. I think there's like there are certain cards that are problematic in the format, and probably will need to be dealt with. And hopefully you guys hit that like button if you guys enjoyed this video. If you guys play some of these decks, let me know if I didn't give it proper coverage. If you guys want to see more stuff on MST.TV, and of course we're going to look into meta countering, hit the subscribe button, and don't forget to hit the notification bell. It really helps me out. And check out MSTmerch.com if you guys want to acquire some really awesome MST merch. When the new stuff come out, I'm going to showcase it to you guys, and if you guys want it, you guys can get it from the site, and I really appreciate it. Thank you guys so much, and I'll see you guys in the next one.